Nova descent. The sky burned crimson as Kerr crested the ridge. Beneath his cracked boots, Nova Thule's alien soil shifted, burnt umber grains brittle and untrusting, like everything on this world. He paused, adjusting the atmospheric filter across his nose and mouth, eyes scanning the horizon where strange formations jutted from barren plains. Their shapes defied human architecture, twisting spires of obsidian material that absorbed light rather than reflected it, void black against the blood-red sky. Scout protocol demanded immediate reporting and retreat. Kerr logged coordinates instead and advanced. "Command, this is Scout Kerr," he transmitted, voice steady despite his racing pulse. "Confirming anomalous structures at grid coordinates 47 Alpha, requesting extended reconnaissance authorization." The comm system crackled with distance and atmospheric interference. Nova Thule had that effect on technology: unpredictable degradation, signal ghosts, phantom data. "Negative, Kerr." Lennox's voice, colony operations. "Return to base immediately, priority Alpha." Kerr frowned, fingers adjusting the scanner strapped to his forearm. "Request reason for recall. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the structures." A pause stretched across the comm channel. Wind whispered across Nova Thule's surface, carrying rust-colored particles that scratched at exposed skin. "Director Caudor is dead," Lennox finally responded. "Colony leadership protocol enacted. All field personnel recalled." The news settled like the planet's ochre dust on Kerr's shoulders. Caudor, pragmatic, cautious, resistant to rapid expansion. Dead. "Understood," he replied, eyes still fixed on the alien structures. "Initiating return protocol." His hand lowered to the sample container at his belt. Inside, secured in containment foam, rested a spherical object discovered at the structure's perimeter. Small enough to conceal. Significant enough to warrant private study before official logging. Its surface gleamed with subtle pulses of cobalt blue and emerald green beneath the obsidian exterior. One last scan, one last specimen. Then home. The colony's primary dome gleamed sterile white under artificial lighting, its curved surface separating ordered human existence from Nova Thule's hostile atmosphere. Inside, recycled air carried whispers between prefabricated corridors and communal spaces painted in institutional grays and blues, designed to instill calm and order. Morai waited in their quarters, her back straight, face composed in practiced neutrality. Her regulation uniform was perfectly pressed navy blue, her ash-blonde hair pulled into a severe bun. Only her fingers betrayed tension, tapping rhythmic patterns against the silver tablet in her lap. "You're back," she said as the door sealed behind Kerr. Not a greeting, an acknowledgement. Kerr removed his atmospheric filter, feeling the processed air of the colony fill his lungs. Sterile, controlled, nothing like the wild chemistry beyond the dome. He stripped off his field suit, stained rust red with Nova Thule's soil, revealing the standard-issue gray undergarments of colony personnel. "Caudor's dead," he said, setting his field pack beside the narrow bed. "Heart failure," Morai replied. "Sudden, during breakfast." Her ice-blue eyes met his, calculating, assessing. They had married in the final days on Earth when colony assignments were being distributed. Strategic pairing, her administrative expertise, his field capabilities. Complementary assets. "Heart failure," Kerr repeated, the words tasting wrong. He was 43, enhanced cardiovascular system like all of us. Morai's pale fingers stilled on the tablet. The medical report was conclusive. "Signed by Shaw?" "Of course." Kerr studied his wife's face, the sharp angles, the controlled expressions that had attracted him during the selection process. Efficiency in human form. He had mistaken it for love once. "They've appointed Porter as interim director," she continued, setting the tablet aside. "The council protocols require confirmation within the week." Porter, Caudor's deputy. Measured, analytical, unlikely to disrupt established operation parameters. "What did you find out there?" Morai asked, changing direction with practiced ease. Kerr hesitated. The sample container weighed against his hip. "Rock formations. Unusual energy readings. Truth, but incomplete. Nothing conclusive." Her pale eyes narrowed slightly. "Nothing worth reporting immediately? Nothing that would warrant emergency protocols? No, he lied, the words settling between them like the rust-colored dust of Nova Thule. Nothing urgent. Morai nodded once, seemingly satisfied. Rest. The memorial service is at 1900 hours. Our presence is expected. As she left their quarters, Kerr removed the sample container from his belt. The sphere within pulsed with subtle luminescence, cobalt blues and emerald greens shifting beneath an obsidian surface. Beautiful, alien, unknown. He secured it in his personal storage unit behind encoded locks designed to resist even administrative override. Some discoveries required private examination before becoming institutional knowledge. Some truths needed to remain hidden until their implications were understood. The memorial service proceeded with colony efficiency. Minimal ritual, maximum functionality. Resources were limited on Nova Thule. Even grief operated under conservation protocols. Kerr stood among the gathered colonists, all in regulation gray and navy blue, watching Porter deliver the eulogy. Standard phrases. Appropriate pauses. The perfect performance of leadership during transition. Porter wore a director's black band on his arm, the only deviation from standard uniform protocol. Director Carter understood the delicate balance between exploration and security, Porter stated, voice modulated to project precisely the right amount of respectful authority. His caution guided our first successful year on Nova Thule. Among the assembled leadership, Kerr spotted Shaw, medical chief, her expression professionally somber beneath her silver-gray hair. Beside her stood Lyon, security operations, back rigid with military bearing, uniform deepest navy with silver trim. Morai occupied a position near the front, her administrative rank placing her among the colony's decision-makers, all in deepening shades of blue that marked their authority. Caution, someone whispered beside Kerr, a diplomatic word for stagnation. Kerr turned slightly, macked, resource allocation head, his weathered face tight with controlled emotion, the dusty tan of his field uniform marking him as someone who worked beyond the dome. Carter protected us, Kerr responded quietly. He limited us, Mack countered. 3 survey expeditions denied in 2 months. Resource extraction proposals rejected, scientific inquiry restricted to immediate survival needs. The memorial continued around their whispered exchange, Porter describing Carter's legacy. The assembled colonists nodding at appropriate intervals, a sea of blues and grays performing grief as required by protocol. We don't know what's out there, Kerr said. Exactly. Mack's eyes reflected the overhead lighting, hard and determined, and some of us believe we should find out. The service concluded with the traditional moment of silence. Throughout the room, heads bowed in performative respect. Kerr watched Morai instead, noting how her ice-blue eyes remained open, scanning the gathered colonists with calculated assessment. Afterward, Porter approached him. Handshake firm, expression appropriately grave beneath the subtle silver threading at his temples. Scout Kerr, he acknowledged. I've reviewed your latest field reports. Impressive work. Thank you, sir. I'd like your assessment of the Western Territories. Expansion potential, resource accessibility. Porter lowered his voice slightly. Director Carter's caution served us well during establishment, but Nova Thule offers opportunities we've barely begun to explore. The shift in policy direction emerged before Carter's body had even been processed through recycling. Too convenient, too coordinated. Of course, sir, Kerr replied. I'll prepare a comprehensive briefing. As Porter moved to other conversations, Morai appeared at Kerr's side. Her hand rested lightly on his arm, public display of partnership, nothing more. Porter has requested your appointment as chief scout, she murmured. Expanded authority, increased resource allocation for exploration initiatives. He's been interim director for less than a day. Efficiency matters during transitions. Her fingers tightened slightly on his arm, pale against the dark fabric of his uniform. This is our opportunity, Kerr, the one we discussed before departure. Before departure, when ambition still seemed noble rather than dangerous, when Nova Thule was a theoretical challenge rather than a daily threat. We should discuss this privately, he said. Her smile appeared, professional, calculated to reassure without revealing. Of course, tonight. As the memorial gathering dispersed, Kerr felt a subtle headache forming behind his eyes. Pressure, discomfort, like Nova Thule's atmosphere, against the colony's protective dome. Constant, insistent, seeking entry through any vulnerable point. In his quarters, the alien sphere pulsed in rhythm with his discomfort, blues and greens shifting to deeper indigo and viridian. Cawdor would never have approved resource extraction at the Western Ridge, Morai argued, pacing their small living space with predatory efficiency. Her skin looked almost translucent under the quarter's white lighting, veins a faint blue beneath the surface. Kerr sat on the edge of their bed, massaging his temples. The headache had intensified throughout the evening, vision occasionally blurring at the periphery. "We don't know enough about this planet," he countered. The Western formations show unusual properties, inconsistent readings, material compositions that change between scans. Exactly why we need to study them directly, extract samples, analyze their potential. It could be dangerous. Morai stopped pacing, studying him with clinical detachment. Everything beyond the dome is dangerous. That's why we're here, to convert danger into opportunity. Her words echoed strangely in Kerr's mind, resonating with thoughts that didn't feel entirely his own. Convert danger into opportunity. Seize what others fear. "Porter isn't confirmed yet," he said, fighting through the pressure behind his eyes. "The council requires full leadership vote." A formality. Morai's confidence bordered on certainty. The vote is already secured. The realization crystallized through Kerr's discomfort. You knew about Cawdor before it happened. Her expression didn't change. No denial, no confirmation, only calculated assessment of his reaction. "Heart failure is unpredictable," she said finally, "even with enhancements." "Not that unpredictable." "Nova Thule demands decisive leadership," Morai continued, ignoring his implication. "Porter understands the colony's potential. With your exploration expertise and my administrative position, we can shape the direction of humanity's future here. We. As if they remained partners rather than adjacent ambitions temporarily aligned. "I need rest," Kerr said, the pressure behind his eyes becoming unbearable. "Field reconnaissance tomorrow." Morai nodded, seemingly satisfied with the conversation's progression. "Porter will announce your promotion at the morning briefing. The Western Territories should be your priority focus." After she left for her late shift in administration, Kerr moved to his secured storage unit. The alien sphere pulsed more rapidly now, its surface patterns shifting with hypnotic complexity. The blue-green pulses had intensified, becoming almost painfully bright in the dim quarters. As he lifted it from its containment foam, whispers brushed against his consciousness. Not voices, impressions, knowledge without words, visions without images. Director, power, expansion, destiny. The concepts flowed from the sphere into his mind, indistinguishable from his own thoughts after mere moments, seductive in their clarity, compelling in their certainty. Each thought accompanied by flashes of vivid color, royal purple for power, golden yellow for enlightenment, deepening blue for destiny. Kerr's hands trembled as he returned the sphere to its container. Sleep eluded him that night, his dreams filled with twisted black spires and crimson skies and three distinct presences observing his every thought with ancient patience. The colony transformed under Porter's directorship. Exploration teams deployed daily. Resource extraction initiated at previously restricted locations. Scientific protocols relaxed to accommodate accelerated development timelines. Kerr, now chief scout, led the most ambitious expeditions. His recommendations carried authority that converted immediately to action. His discoveries shaped colony expansion with unprecedented speed. His new uniform carried golden trim, marking his elevated status. And each night, the alien sphere whispered to him of greater possibilities, its blue-green light gradually acquiring purple undertones. "The Western formation should be approached with extreme caution," he reported during the fourth week of Porter's leadership. "Energy readings suggest potential radiation hazards." The briefing room housed the colony's senior leadership. Porter at the head of the table, the director's midnight black jacket setting him apart from the navy blue uniforms surrounding him. Morai beside him, her influence growing through carefully cultivated alliances. Shaw from medical, Lyon from security, Mac from resources, the power structure of humanity's foothold on Nova Thule. Specifics, Porter requested, his manner increasingly direct as his authority solidified. Inconsistent patterns, Kerr explained, displaying sensor readings on the central projection. The holographic display showed pulsing obsidian structures veined with threads of violet energy. The formations appear to shift between observation periods. Material composition varies without apparent cause. Fascinating, Shaw commented, leaning forward. Her normally silver hair showed subtle violet highlights under the briefing room lights. Potentially adaptive structures. Or potentially dangerous unknown technology, Lyon rebuffed. Porter studied the projection, his decision already visible in his posture. Establish a research outpost at the Western Ridge. Full containment protocols, but I want samples and direct analysis. Sir, Kerr interjected, Scout Protocol recommends extended remote observation before. Scout Protocol was established for conservative operation parameters, Porter interrupted. We're implementing expansion initiative guidelines now. The words aligned precisely with the whispers that filled Kerr's dreams. Expansion, opportunity, destiny. Morai's expression remained neutral, but satisfaction radiated from her carefully controlled posture. Administration has already drafted resource allocation proposals for the outpost. Construction can begin immediately. Too coordinated, too prepared, as if decisions had been made before discussions began. After the briefing, Mac approached Kerr in the corridor. The resource officer's expression had grown increasingly troubled as Porter's directives accelerated. The tan of his uniform remained unchanged, a stark contrast to the darkening blues and blacks of leadership. This isn't right, he said without preamble. The expansion timeline is dangerously compressed. Safety protocols circumvented, risk assessments ignored. Kerr glanced around the empty corridor, its white walls unmarked by the personalization found in most human settlements. Porter has council authorization. Does he? Mac countered. I've reviewed the transmission logs. The council's confirmation message came through a relay station that experienced technical difficulties immediately afterward. Convenient timing. The headache that had become Kerr's constant companion intensified, flashing crimson behind his eyes. What are you suggesting? Shaw's medical report on Caudor is missing key diagnostic data. Lyon's security logs show unusual access patterns the night before Caudor died. Mac lowered his voice further. And your wife initiated administrative protocol changes 3 days before becoming necessary. The corridor's recycled air felt suddenly insufficient. Kerr's vision blurred at the edges, foreign whispers rising beneath his conscious thoughts. Threat, obstacle, removal. Be careful, Mac, he heard himself say. Expansion requires unity of purpose. The words emerged from his mouth, but they didn't feel like his own. The resource officer studied him with growing concern. I don't recognize you anymore, Kerr, he said finally. None of you. It's like something's changed in the very air we breathe. As Mac walked away, Kerr fought to separate his thoughts from the alien whispers. The distinction grew more difficult each day. Each hour, each moment, the sphere pulsed in his quarters, sending its silent influence through the colony's recycled atmosphere. The Western outpost rose with industrial efficiency, prefabricated white structures assembled under Porter's accelerated timeline. Research teams collected samples from the alien formations. Analysis proceeded without the caution Caudor would have demanded. Kerr stood at the edge of the excavation site, watching automated equipment extract obsidian material from the twisted spires. Each extraction released microscopic particles into Nova Thule's atmosphere. Each particle carried the same properties as the sphere hidden in his quarters, tiny motes that sparkled indigo and emerald against the crimson sky. Remarkable molecular structure, Shaw commented, appearing beside him. Her medical uniform now bore streaks of violet that matched the strange discoloration at her temples. Self-organizing, almost programmable. The medical chief had changed subtly since Porter's appointment. Her cautious scientific methodology replaced by feverish enthusiasm. Her meticulous documentation abandoned for rapid result approaches. "Have you experienced any unusual symptoms?" Kerr asked, studying her altered demeanor. "Headaches? Intrusive thoughts?" Shaw's eyes narrowed slightly, their normal brown now showing flecks of violet. "Are you conducting a medical assessment, Chief Scout?" "Professional concern. The formations emit unknown radiation." "All personnel undergo regular screening." Her response came too quickly, too defensive. "We're making extraordinary discoveries. Revolutionary materials, compounds that could transform human capability." The same fervor Kerr felt when the sphere whispered in his mind. The same certainty that overrode caution. "Porter has authorized direct integration testing," Shaw continued, lowering her voice despite the empty terrain surrounding them. "Molecular bonding between human tissue and extracted materials." Horror cut through the whispers in Kerr's mind. "Human testing? Without council approval?" "The council doesn't understand our opportunities here." Shaw's eyes gleamed with unnatural intensity, violet overtaking brown. "Porter does. Your wife does. Progress requires bold action." As she walked away, Kerr activated his personal scanner, sweeping it across the excavation site. The readings confirmed his suspicion. Microscopic particles suspended throughout the work area, glittering indigo and emerald. The same composition as the sphere, the same energy signature, infecting equipment, infecting atmosphere suits, infecting the colonists themselves. That night, he confronted Morai in their quarters. "Porter has authorized human testing with unanalyzed alien material," he stated without preamble. "Shaw is proceeding without proper protocols." Morai continued reviewing reports on her silver tablet, unperturbed. The blue veins beneath her pale skin seemed more pronounced, tracing patterns that reminded Kerr of the alien formations. "Revolutionary discovery requires revolutionary methods. It's reckless, potentially catastrophic. It's necessary." She looked up finally, studying him with clinical detachment. Her ice blue eyes now held unmistakable violet undertones. "You've changed, Kerr. Your enthusiasm for expansion has diminished. Your reports increasingly emphasize caution over opportunity." The sphere pulsed in its storage unit, visible now on their shared desk. Morai had found it, accessed it, perhaps communed with it as he had. Its blue-green glow now dominated by royal purple. "That's influence from the alien material," he said, indicating the sphere. "It affects cognitive processes, enhances ambition, diminishes risk assessment." "It clarifies purpose," she countered, "reveals potential. The formations aren't just structures, they're communication tools, technology beyond our understanding, or weapons designed to influence behavior." Morai set the tablet aside, her movement precise and controlled. "The council would restrict access, implement quarantine, deny us the advancement this planet offers. With good reason. Fear has always limited human progress." Her voice carried absolute conviction. "Porter understands this. So do I. I had hoped you would as well." The realization settled with cold certainty. "You did remove Carter." Morai didn't deny it. He was an obstacle. His caution would have condemned us to decades of minimal existence on this world. And now Porter leads us toward potential extinction. Porter leads us toward transcendence. She gestured toward the sphere, its purple light casting alien shadows across her features. "The formations communicate. They offer knowledge, enhancement, partnership, control," Kerr corrected. "They're changing how people think, how they decide. You've been exposed longer than you realize." The whispers in his mind intensified, pushing against his resistance. Embrace, accept, lead. Each thought pulsed with royal purple. "I'm requesting suspension of Western site operations," he said, fighting through the pressure. "Pending full hazard assessment." Morai's expression hardened. "Porter won't approve that request." "Then I'll contact the council directly. Emergency override protocols." "Communications with Earth require administrative authorization now." Her statement carried no regret, only facts. Porter implemented new security measures yesterday. The trap closed around the colony, isolated, contaminated, directed toward purposes no human had consciously chosen. What have you done, Morai? Secured humanity's future on Nova Thule. She stood, moving toward the door, the veins beneath her skin tracing patterns that matched the alien formations, pulsing with faint violet light. Rest, Kerr. Your next expedition departs tomorrow. The formations extend further than our initial surveys indicated. After she left, Kerr approached the pulsing sphere. Its surface patterns shifted in hypnotic complexity, dominant purple interspersed with blue-green, whispering directly into his consciousness. Director, power, destiny. With trembling hands, he secured it in portable containment. Evidence, proof. If he could reach Mac, the only senior officer who still expressed concern, perhaps they could implement emergency protocols. Contact the council through unofficial channels. As he moved through the colony's nighttime corridors, the dome above showed Nova Thule's twin moons illuminating alien terrain. Beautiful crystalline white spheres hanging in the black sky, casting silver light on a deadly world whose patient malevolence became clearer with each passing day. Mac listened without interruption, examining the sphere with scientific precision rather than converted fascination. His quarters remained untouched by the colony-wide changes. No darkening blues, no purple accents, only the warm, human tones of personal items from Earth. Microscopic particles, he confirmed, reviewing scanner data. Potentially airborne once released from the parent material. The Western site is effectively distributing this throughout the local atmosphere. And potentially through the colony's air filtration systems, Kerr added, if contaminated personnel brought particles inside the dome. Explaining the behavioral changes among leadership, Mac set the scanner aside. Porter, Shaw, your wife. Lyon as well, Kerr confirmed. Security protocols have shifted toward expansion support rather than colonial protection. And you found this sphere, handled it directly. Kerr nodded, acknowledging the unavoidable truth. I hear whispers, suggestions. They're becoming harder to separate from my own thoughts. Mac's expression remained carefully neutral. Yet you're here, warning me, seeking intervention. For now, Kerr admitted, the influence progresses at different rates, perhaps due to exposure levels, perhaps due to individual resistance factors, or perhaps due to alignment with existing personality traits, Mac suggested, those already predisposed to ambition, to control. Like Morai, Kerr finished. Like your wife, Mac corrected gently. The person, not just the position. The distinction struck with unexpected force. When had he begun thinking of her primarily as function rather than individual? Before Nova Thule? Before the colony selection process? Perhaps always. We need to implement emergency protocols, Kerr redirected. Containment procedures for potentially contaminated personnel, suspension of Western site operations, direct council communication. Porter controls those systems now, Mac reminded him, with Lyon's security forces enforcing compliance. There are backup communication systems, emergency protocols designed for leadership collapse scenarios. Mac nodded slowly. Hidden in the secondary environmental control center, restricted access. My scout authorization can get us inside, Kerr said, but we'll need to move quickly. Morai knows I'm resistant to the influence. She'll alert Porter. Tonight, then. Mac secured the sphere in its containment unit, the purple glow dimming behind the protective barrier. I'll gather trusted personnel from my department, people who've expressed concerns about the accelerated timeline. As Kerr moved toward the door, Mac added, the formations, the structures you've been mapping, what are they, do you think? Kerr hesitated, the whispers in his mind temporarily quieting. I believe they're dormant technology, waiting. The sphere may be an advanced system, designed to influence any intelligence that discovers the main structures. Influence toward what purpose? Activation, Kerr said simply. We're being guided to awaken something that's been sleeping on this planet, something that was here long before humans arrived. The realization settled between them with the weight of extinction-level threat. We meet at 1900 hours, Mac confirmed. Secondary environmental control. Kerr nodded once and slipped back into the corridor, moving through the colony with the practiced stealth that made him chief scout. Around him, the dome's artificial day cycle continued, colonists proceeding with their assigned functions, unaware of the invisible influence spreading through their carefully regulated environment, unaware of the ancient technology using human ambition to orchestrate its own awakening. Kerr never reached the secondary environmental control center. Security forces intercepted him 3 corridors away, Leon personally overseeing the arrest. The security chief's uniform now entirely black with purple insignia, matching the strange discoloration spreading along his jawline. Unauthorized access attempt to restricted systems, the security chief stated, expression vacant of the professional courtesy that had once existed between them. Potential sabotage of critical colonial infrastructure. No trial. No formal charges. Only immediate detention in a repurposed storage unit near Porter's newly established administrative center, its walls gleaming white beneath harsh lighting. Hours later, Morai visited. Her movements had changed, more fluid, less rigidly controlled, as if something else now occupied the space within her precisely maintained exterior. The veins beneath her skin pulsed with unmistakable violet light. Mac has been removed from resource allocation, she informed him without greeting. Attempting to contact Earth without authorization, spreading misinformation about colonial leadership. Kerr studied her, searching for remnants of the person beneath the influence. And his supporters? Reassigned to the Western outpost. Her voice carried no emotion. Their expertise will accelerate the integration process. Integration. The formations respond to human presence, Morai explained, as if discussing routine operations. The materials adapt when introduced to biological tissue, symbiotic potential beyond our original understanding. Horror crept through Kerr's resistance. You're allowing the alien material to bond with human subjects. Not allowing. Encouraging. Something like enthusiasm animated her features, the most genuine emotion he'd seen from her in years. The results are extraordinary. Enhanced cognitive processing, improved physical capabilities, direct communication with the formation network. Porter has authorized your integration procedure? Morai continued. Your scout experience makes you valuable to the architect's arrival preparation. The procedure begins tomorrow. After she left, Kerr examined his cell with professional assessment rather than desperate panic. Standard storage unit, converted door mechanism, 2 ventilation access points designed for maintenance rather than human passage. The second, smaller vent would accommodate his frame if the internal barrier could be removed. Scout adaptability training focused on precisely such improvisational problem solving. As artificial night cycle commenced, he worked methodically to create an escape route. Each movement calculated, each sound minimized. The scout who had mapped Nova Thule's hostile terrain now mapping his path through human confinement. The whispers continued their assault on his consciousness, weakening his resolve, highlighting the futility of resistance, emphasizing the inevitability of transcendence. Join, ascend, embrace. 3 distinct patterns of influence, 3 separate entities working in concert to overcome his resistance. The sphere's pulsing purple light translated into cognitive invasion. By the time colony lighting indicated early morning cycle, Kerr had created his escape route. The ventilation system opened before him, a network of maintenance passages similar to those he had mapped during his first months on Nova Thule. Move, survive, warn. Simple imperatives to counter the complex manipulation attempting to override his will. The colony had transformed during his brief confinement. Personnel moved through corridors with altered gaits, more fluid, less individualistic. Conversation patterns had changed, shorter exchanges, shared knowledge assumed rather than communicated. Uniform colors had deepened to navy and black, with purple accents becoming increasingly common. Veins pulsed visibly beneath pale skin. Collective consciousness emerging from individual infection. Kerr navigated maintenance passages toward the landing bay. If the architects would arrive within days, the colony required warning. Earth needed immediate alert. The emergency shuttles contained independent communication systems designed for worst-case scenarios where colony infrastructure failed. This qualified. The landing bay operated with mechanical precision. Maintenance crews preparing vehicles for the Western Outpost expansion. Security personnel monitoring access points. Administrative staff coordinating resource allocation. All moving with subtle synchronization that betrayed their altered state. All bearing traces of violet discoloration. Kerr observed from a recessed maintenance hatch, calculating approach vectors and timing intervals. The emergency shuttle remained in its designated bay, rarely used, designed for evacuation rather than exploration. Its gleaming white exterior untouched by the purple contamination spreading through the colony. Its communication system would reach Earth with appropriate emergency protocols to ensure immediate attention. If he could reach it. The bay's attention focused on the main airlock as it cycled open. Porter emerged, accompanied by Shaw and Lyon. Between them walked Mac, unrestrained but vacant-eyed, violet streaks visible at his temples. Another convert to the architect's influence. The distraction provided Kerr's opportunity. Moving with scout precision, he crossed exposed territory toward the emergency shuttle. Access panel, authorization code, system activation. The shuttle hummed to life as external alarms activated, flashing red throughout the landing bay. Security forces responding to unauthorized access, converging on his position with coordinated efficiency. No escape, not for him. But the message would reach Earth. Kerr's fingers flew across the communication console, programming emergency protocols and transmission parameters. Warning codes. Threat assessment, quarantine recommendations. The shuttle's external hatch buckled under security override procedures. Moments remained before physical intervention. As Kerr initiated the emergency transmission, the landing bay doors opened, not for security reinforcement, not for administrative intervention, for Morai. She walked across the bay floor alone, her movements fluid with alien grace, her uniform now deepest black with royal purple trim, her expression serene with converted certainty. The veins beneath her skin traced complex patterns that matched the alien formations, pulsing with bright violet light. The architects anticipated resistance, she said, voice carrying easily through the shuttle's compromised hatch. They encountered it on every world. The potential always exists within social organisms for rejection of symbiosis. The transmission required 30 more seconds to encode and launch. Kerr positioned himself between the console and the failing hatch. This isn't symbiosis, he countered. It's parasitism disguised as enhancement. A matter of perspective. Morai approached as security forces breached the hatch, their uniforms black with purple insignia. Your perspective will shift after integration. All resistance does eventually. The distraction provided Kerr's opportunity. Moving with scout precision, he crossed exposed territory toward the emergency shuttle. Access panel, authorization code, system activation. The shuttle hummed to life as external alarms activated, flashing red throughout the landing bay. Security forces responding to unauthorized access. Converging on his position with coordinated efficiency. No escape, not for him. But the message would reach Earth. Kerr's fingers moved across the communication console, programming emergency protocols and transmission parameters. Warning codes, threat assessment, quarantine recommendations. The shuttle's external hatch buckled under security override procedures. Moments remained before physical intervention. As Kerr initiated the emergency transmission, the landing bay doors opened. Not for security reinforcement, not for administrative intervention. For Morai. She walked across the bay floor alone, her movements fluid with alien grace. Her uniform now deepest black with royal purple trim, her expression serene with converted certainty. The veins beneath her skin traced complex patterns that matched the alien formations, pulsing with bright violet light. The architects anticipated resistance, she said, voice carrying easily through the shuttle's compromised hatch. They encountered it on every world. The potential always exists within social organisms for rejection of symbiosis. The transmission required 30 more seconds to encode and launch. Kerr positioned himself between the console and the failing hatch. "This isn't symbiosis," he countered. "It's parasitism disguised as enhancement." A matter of perspective. Morai approached as security forces breached the hatch, their uniforms black with purple insignia. Your perspective will shift after integration. All resistance does, eventually. 20 seconds. 15. The console processing emergency protocols designed to overcome communication interference. "Why this urgency?" Kerr asked, buying precious seconds. "If the architects have waited millennia, why rush integration now?" Something alien smiled through Morai's familiar features, her eyes entirely violet now. "Because you're not the only intelligence discovering their seeded worlds. Competition exists on cosmic scales just as it does in human social structures." The transmission completed its encoding sequence, initiated launch parameters, prepared for immediate dispatch. "Earth will be warned," Kerr said as security forces secured his arms. Quarantine protocols implemented. No further colonization of Nova Thule. "Earth has already received architects' gifts," Morai replied, the revelation landing with extinction-level impact. "The mineral samples sent for analysis during our first month, the atmospheric composition reports containing microscopic particles. The colonists who returned for medical treatment, carrying the architect's influence within their bodies." The emergency shuttle's communication console beeped confirmation. Transmission sent, warning delivered. Too late. The integration procedure utilized the colony's medical bay, its sterile white environment, now marred by equipment veined with obsidian and purple. Shaw supervised personally, her movements precise with alien enhancement. Porter observed from behind protective barriers, unnecessary precaution for someone already converted, but maintaining procedure appearances. Both now bore visible traces of the alien influence, skin pale to translucence, veins tracing complex violet patterns, eyes entirely overtaken by luminous purple. Kerr remained conscious throughout, aware as microscopic particles were introduced to his bloodstream, glittering indigo and emerald before shifting to royal purple. Cognizant as they spread through vital systems, alert as they reached neural pathways and began restructuring connections. The whispers grew from subtle suggestion to overwhelming presence. 3 distinct entities communicating directly through his altered consciousness. His resistance failed incrementally, methodically, precisely as the architects had designed over countless worlds and innumerable species. The sterile white of the medical bay gradually washed with purple light as his perception changed. As Kerr's consciousness submerged beneath the architect's influence, his last human thought focused on the crimson sky beyond the dome. A sky that would soon witness the return of those who had seeded this world millennia ago, guided home by unwitting human ambition. The last flash of truly human awareness faded from Kerr's eyes as violet light overtook them completely. Kerr finally understands. Join, ascend, embrace. The end. Thank you for listening to Nova Descent, a published work of Millennia Publishing. Visit millenniapublishing.com to discover more. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible stories. Hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest uploads.